Shalom, shalom, shalom לכם, אנשים טובים וברוכים הבאים לעוד סרטון בערוץ הקטן שלי. Welcome back to my channel. Um, I'm on today to talk about a topic, not really on a topic specifically, but I want to talk about Semitic languages in particular. Semitic languages in particular, their similarities, and we're thinking primarily of course, Hebrew primarily, but we're going to be looking at the similarities between Hebrew and Arabic. And I guess the best way to put this is that this is not going to be specifically on the topic, because I want to say three powerful words to you. 1, 2, 3. Yeah. 3 powerful words to you. Shalom to you. Errol Spike. Good to see you, my man. I was intending to call you. Yeah, we need to chat this week. Matter of fact, yeah, we'll talk. I want to say 3 powerful words to you, and they're very liberating. I don't know. I don't know. A lot of people will not take the liberty to say these words because they feel the pressure to have to be able to have an answer for everything. And I don't know, it's part ego, it's part I need to be this wise old, Zakan graybeard. But one of the most liberating phrases that I've ever known is to simply say, I don't know. I know a lot of things linguistically speaking, but I don't know the whys. I don't know the whys. There are plenty of channels with big platforms. They have the third-party software. They can do the graphics and they can do all of those things. Someday when I grow up, I hope to graduate and become that. But in the meantime, I want to talk to you about the similarities between the languages, and then I want to show you an example of the Canaanite shift. The Canaanite shift, which is a topic of a lot of interest for a lot of people. There are some, as you may have read in the description, there are some who believe that ancient Hebrew only employed employed as a vowel. And again, there are so many sources out there to disprove that hands down. But they base this on their limited knowledge of the Canaanite shift. It's kind of not so important to them when it took place, but it did take place where there was a shift in the vowels in the northwestern Semitic languages. That includes primarily the Canaanite languages, Hebrew, Punic. There's quite a few of them, but they were affected by this shift. So no matter who you are today, you might hear someone spit out a sentence like, right? What did that sound like, 2,000 or 3,000 years ago? A lot of the O's probably were not there as far as a long vowel. Most of them were probably ahs and es, but everything definitely was not and ah. When you conjugate words, you have to have somewhere to go. And your markers have to be much more than simply consonants. There are vowels involved. And again, there are a lot of people who can explain these things so much better than I. As always, shout outs and appreciations to great friends and brothers like the Young Lion, Brother Divine Prospect, Bishop William Brown, my brother Errol Spike that I see here, Brother Marcus Jones, up there in that good country, up there toward Cranberry Land and Kennebunkport and the Bushes hangouts. Good to see you, my brother, as well. So what I want to start off with here immediately is this. Something that seems like it's out of left field. Raz Al Ghul. Raz Al Ghul. You're talking about the character from the comics? Yeah, the guy who allegedly trained Batman. Where did his name come from? Ras Al Ghul. Ras. If you have a working knowledge of some Hebrew, you'll know that the Hebrew word for head is Rosh. The Hebrew word for head is Rosh, and you'll see it cantillated as such. Yeah, Rosh means head, and has the shin, the sh sound, sh. Okay. Ras, on the other hand, and this is a comparison between Hebrew and between Arabic. Brother Marcus says he's in the sticks. That's all right. Sometimes the sticks can be a whole lot safer than the concrete jungle I live in. And trust me, my brother. So you have, in Arabic, you have ras, ras. And you notice the sound, ras, versus, I don't feel like switching colors here. Ras versus rosh. What's the difference? It's the O versus the A. O versus A. So when an Arabic speaker hears a Hebrew speaker say rosh, harosh ko'evli, my head, or I'm sorry, harosh ko'evitli, my head hurts, or I have pain in my head. Rosh, ras, they get it, they can pick it up. But the difference is you can be guaranteed that before the Canaanite shift, in ancient Hebrew, rosh was very likely rash, was very likely rash. This was an example of the shift. Let's do a couple of these before I plod on down the line and get myself in trouble with people who see this later. I like trouble. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. And so, how about, for example, you have a word that you know, you're very familiar with. I won't blurt it out. I'll let you read it for me. That looks very familiar, right? What does that say, Brother Errol Spike? Don't be shy, Marcus. Spit it on out there. Who recognizes that word? Nice. Shalom. It's peace or wholeness, more to the point, peace. Again, we're talking about the Canaanite shift, okay? And the cholim vav became, in a lot of cases, one of the dominant vowels in a lot of these words. How about Aramaic? Aramaic, the original language spoken by Yeshua. And of course, if you didn't know, Aramaic can be written with its own Syriac script. It can be written with Arabic characters, and it can also be written with the classic box Hebrew characters as well. It's not very different. You have Shlama. And one of the things that will always give itself away about Aramaic, most Aramaic words always end in an aleph. In an aleph. Okay, so you have shalom and shlama. Shlama. Shalom and shlama. Yeah, you with me still? Watch what happens when we go to Arabic. With Arabic, we have, I got to remember my Arabic here. Oh, yeah. We have salam. Salam. So you noticed, since Arabic was not affected by the Canaanite shift, its vowels are ah and ah. Salam. Salam. We have shalom in Hebrew, shalom, because it was affected. And you noticed shlama in Aramaic did not change. We'll get to your shalom, Marcus. We'll get to that one. That one's one of my favorites. I'm not going to disparage it, though. I'm not going to disparage it. But shlama, and the reason, again, is because Aramaic was not affected by the Canaanite shift. It was not part of the Northwest Semitic families, nor was Arabic. Therefore, it was not affected. But again, you can hear the similarities in the fact that the letters are virtually the same. Where does shalom come from? Where does shalom come from? So shalom comes from, again, that notion that all vowels were ah somehow. Sha, la, and the vowel being pronounced as W, shalom. This is where this came from. Will I say that it's virtually impossible? No, I don't think anybody can say that with any honesty. But I will use the word highly improbable. Highly improbable with the information that's available. Highly improbable. But again, it's thrown back and forth between members of the community and people of faith, and it's recognized. So there's no need to beat it up and talk bad about it. Not impossible, but highly improbable. Now, again, I told you this won't be specifically on one thing. This is not a refute video. This is not a beat up video. This is just some basic and general information. And I guess my primary goal here is to say, especially by starting out saying that I don't know. I don't know a lot of things. I have more exposure to the Semitic languages from boyhood. And since I've used all three of them pretty much most of my life, there are differences and nuances and similarities that I picked up that most people will miss out on. Yeah, great point, Errol Spike. The Akkadians, they say, yeah, shlumu or shlum. Yeah, but you notice one thing that stays the same: the consonants. Shin, shin, la, and ma, or shin lamet mem. In Arabic, the only thing that takes place, and which is the next thing that we're going to here, the only thing that takes place is what's typically sh becomes just s, as shalom becomes salam. A year in Hebrew is shana. In Arabic, it's sana. Okay. Um, there are some things that do stay the same. For example, in Hebrew, you have the word for the sun in the sky that warms us, shemesh. In Arabic, shams. Tower in Hebrew is migdal. In Arabic, it's majdal. Majdal. Okay, and we'll get to a couple of those. Why the vav over the wow is a very good question. Um, I personally believe, with the research that I have done, and it is limited, it has plenty of room for a correction. The wow as the ancient pronunciation of the letter is far more documented than supporting the vav sound. Hebrew already has the bet, and the vet that doubles, but the wow sound has a pretty good track record as far as historically being able to trace it back, and you can hear it even in the Arabic counterpart. Sometimes Hebrew, instead of using vet, like for example, there's in the modern Hebrew rule, Shalom, George Evans, Divine got you here, and I appreciate you, my man. And yeah, one thing I can tell you about brother Divine Prospect, the young man is just an absolute wealth of walking information. I think if somebody hung him under a tree and you hit him with a stick like a piñata, the knowledge would just fall everywhere. He's like a walking, living knowledge piñata. It's probably a pretty rough analogy to use, but yeah, I mean, the young brother is full of knowledge and such a gracious young man. I'm very appreciative of him, and I'll touch at that question that you're asking. But I want to get you a couple of more similarities, a couple of things we'll write down. So, for example, again, to draw comparisons, you have the Hebrew word for a key, mafteach, The Arabic word for a key is muftah. Can you hear it? Mafteach, muftah. A donkey in Hebrew, chamor. In Arabic, it's himar. Khalav for milk in Hebrew, halib for milk in Arabic, and on and on and on. So the next thing I was going to talk about, and trust me, Brother George, I'm going to get lightly to what you're asking, because that's a bombshell there. How about this? How about the Hebrew word for third? I'm going to put you guys on the spot again. Make you read my Hebrew here. Even though you can't write your pronunciation, I forgot about that. It's not like we're on Zoom and you can talk and I can hear you. But this is the Hebrew word for third. Third. Ah, nice, Jason. Nice, Jason. That's correct. So that's the third day of the week by adding the word yom. Yom, yeah. Outstanding job, Mitsuyan. Yom HaShlishi. So that's the third day. Shlishi by itself means third, right? So something happens with another Semitic language. Let's say, for example, Arabic. I won't write it down, otherwise I'll burn all our time writing down the Arabic and the Hebrew and the Aramaic and on and on. But just as you have shlishi for the Hebrew, in Arabic, it's talati. Talati. Now watch what happens here. You're going to be like, wait, what? That's what you're going to be like. You're going to be like, wait, what? So it's talati. I'm just going to write it phonetically here. Talati. Talati. That is Arabic. So in Hebrew, we would say achad, shtaim, shalosh, arba, chamesh. In Arabic, we would say wahad, tanin, talati, arba, hamsa. So third in Arabic, or three, is talati. How about in Amharic? What was the guy's name who was the emperor of Ethiopia? Rastafari Makonnen. What did he change his name to? Who remembers? Rastafari Makonnen changed his name to something. There it is. Can you see it, Jason? Can you see it? Selassie. The S sound became interchangeable with the T sound. Talati became Selassie. Selassie. So in Amharic, which is another Semitic language, there was, yeah, I know. Isn't that funny? So it's kind of lofty, I get it, but not Rastafari Makonnen, but Haile Selassie means Holy One of the Three. Lofty title to give yourself, I get it. But Talati became Selassie in Amharic. See how close again the languages are. Let's try another one. That's where it comes from. How about the Hebrew word if we're speaking weather here? If we're talking about the weather. Let's say the Hebrew word for snow. The Hebrew word for snow. I'm getting lazy here. I could write it for this way, or I could write it for this way, so you won't pull your hair out if you're not used to it. Sheleg. Sheleg. Oops, I'm sorry. I used a light color. Sorry about that. Sheleg is the Hebrew word for snow, spelled with a shin, lamed, and a gimel. Sheleg is snow. Now, I'm going to write for you the Arabic word for ice and or snow. And it's also a shared word from Aramaic. Aramaic. Watch what happens here. You might not see the connection. You might not initially see the connection, but Tav, Lamed, sorry about that, and Gimel. Telj, telj, telj. The gimel becomes softened a little bit. I think I put that in the wrong place. Little mark right here softens the gimel, and it becomes telj. Again, the sh sound or the s sound is flip flopped with the t sound. Exactly, exactly, Jason, exactly. So sheleg in Hebrew is snow. Telj in modern spoken Arabic, the Shami dialect that Palestinians speak, it's telj. And in Aramaic, it's also telj. So there's a flip flopping that takes place with the T sound or the th sound and the S. I can speak you more uh, examples. In Hebrew, we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Shmone for 8. In Arabic, it's tamanye, tamanye, shmone, tamanye. So there's all these flip floppings. Well, I mean, it's like, you're killing me, David. What's the point here? What's the point? What are you trying to get at? It's a tall order to speak authoritatively about the state of an ancient Semitic language with full confidence. It's just something that's not wise, even for the most learned among us. It's just something that you shouldn't do. You should be aware of. I mean, there's just layers and layers of things that have taken place. Words have been borrowed along the way, even, for example, in the days Bayom Tanachi, in the days of the Tanakh, in the days of the Hebrew Bible. Hebrew even borrowed from the Egyptian language. Do you remember when Yosef, after he escaped Potiphar's old lady that had the hots for him, after he got elevated, they put something on his finger. It's called a taba'at. Taba'at, which in Hebrew is a ring. Taba'at. Yeah, he barely got away too, Arrow Spike. Yeah, she was after that brother. Um, she's like, I know I'm old. I'm dating myself here. She was like Possum Pearl on the old Popeye commercials, Popeye cartoons. She was not going to be denied. He barely got out of there, and she had a handful of his FUBU outfit by the time he got out the door. But a taba'at was put on his finger. This word did not exist in Hebrew before this entry. Okay, we know this from multiple manuscripts, okay, especially surrounding things of patristic or what do you call it? Aristocratic writings about hierarchy and royalty and X, Y, and Z, right? It did not exist. But what we do have are glyphs, hieroglyphs, okay, that talks about a piece of tachshiti, jewelry, and with the hieroglyphs, it's equivalent to T, B, B, T, or T, B, B, E. And this is where Hebrew borrowed this back in the days of the Tanakh. And then it went on to be known later on in the incident of the golden calf, when they got their nose rings, earrings, and tabaot, and rings. And remember, they threw a bunch of gold into the fire, and magically a calf jumped out, right? Go figure. Yeah, Medunetera. Yeah. Yeah. I never delved. Uh, it was always a source of interest to me, but I never really delved uh, too deep, or I would start and then I would back away. Um, how about this? A couple more of these, and then we're going to address a question that George had. I'm going to only mess with that lightly, but that's what I'm here for. I want to be able to interact with you. So, like, for example, in Aramaic, we have, or in Hebrew, we have the word for book, right? The word for book, sefer. I'm sorry, I'm lazy now, you guys. I'm going to write in a little script here. Sefer, in Aramaic, it's, I'm sorry, I did go sheen there, didn't I? That's another thing that happens. You got too much in your brain. So in Aramaic, it's sifra. And remember, I told you Aramaic has a tendency to end with an aleph a lot. So sefer, a book in Hebrew, sifra. In Aramaic, guess what it is in Arabic? Sifr. Sifr. One more, and we'll move. Again, this is just to give you a little food for thought. How about alam? Alam. Alam in Aramaic means world or age. It's the same thing in Arabic. Alam means world or age. Of course, you know what happens to it in Hebrew. After the shift, it became olam. Olam because of the chulin vav. The cholim vav was involved after the shift. So one thing we can be guaranteed, literally, is that before the Canaanite shift in ancient Hebrew, alam was world as opposed to olam, as we use today. Olam. That's just how it was. So now where's the boogeyman in this that a lot of people make a big deal out of? Where's the boogeyman in this? As if this is somehow some conspiracy or someone hid something, X, Y, Z. Again, this is just something that happened out of necessity in the evolution of languages being influenced by other cultures, and out of necessity in a lot of ways as a way too. There's no hidden evil by some culture or people group or any of that to hide or distort or do anything. It's just the fact of the matter. It's something that came about, and in a lot of ways, it came about as a function of necessity. Finally, one more, we're done. Before we get to a couple of questions, if we have, how about the Hebrew word for a tongue? Tongue, your literal tongue, or language. Literal tongue or language. Lashon. Lashon. You hear that, right? Lashon Kodesh. Lashon. What happens to it in Arabic? In Arabic, it becomes a lisan. Lisan. Do you see it? Lashon. Lisan. That's disrespectful. Sorry about that. Lashon, tongue. Lashon HaKodesh. Lashawan Kadash. Yeah, lisan. A typical phrase in Arabic, if you want to say someone has a big mouth or they lie too much or they're braggadocious, you'll say, Huwa lisan tawil. Huwa lisan tawil. He has a lisan, tongue, tawil, long. He has a tall or long tongue, meaning he lies a lot. So again, we went from we can be guaranteed again that in older Hebrew, it was likely lesan or lasan. Lashan or leshan, it became lashon. Let's see. Jason says some rabbis say that Hebrew has never changed and was the original language before the Tower of Babel. That's a very interesting thought, Jason. And because I'm biased, I have to fight myself to not agree with you. I definitely want to believe it. I know that Aramaic was around a lot longer. And if you go back, I think even Akkadian, as far as having been discovered, let's just put it like that. But the formation of the Proto-Hebrew and the alphabet, and then the similarities in finding, the alphabet being shared in various steles, like the Mesha stele, during the Amarna period, the whole shebang. There's a whole. That's why I say it's layered. It's layered. So when I do say something, you're right. Sumerian is older, and it is an isolate. Yeah. Let me tell you a joke in cuneiform. For the Sumerian. But I say it very carefully because I know 5 minutes from now, or 5 hours, or a year from now, somebody's going to come along, and they're going to be able to help me out, but I am biased. I love Hebrew. I love the flow of the language. And then with respect to modern Hebrew, a lot of people try to beat it up and discredit it. I actually had the pleasure of meeting, let's see, who was he? I want to get this right. So you had Eliezer ben Yehuda, is a guy who's credited. He's a French Jewish guy in the late 1800s that's credited for revitalizing or bringing the language back in a spoken form. Now, a lot of people feel a lot of different ways about that. They disparage it sometimes, talk really bad about it, beat it up. I just want to know how much better of a job you would have done or how I would have done. But I met his grandson. So his father, the man, I say young man, he was 82 when I met him in Charlotte. But his father was the first baby born speaking the modern Hebrew language in Jerusalem. And I think it's quite the feat, quite the accomplishment. Yes, it's hodgepodge. Yeah, it's hodgepodge. Yeah, it's put together with bits and pieces, but that's pretty much like anybody else's language. It's put together in bits and pieces. It borrows from a lot of different languages. It simply does, but it does not make it, for the lack of a better term, an illegitimate bastard as a language. Modern Hebrew was never going to work on a modern level. You were not going to write screenplays or things with ancient Hebrew. You weren't going to do it. Like, for example, I'll give you an example. Hebrew in the biblical form is very Shakespearean. Like, for example, we can say in English, I like you or I love you, right? In Hebrew, you can express the same thing. In Arabic, you would say mehebek, mehebek. In Hebrew, you would say ani ohevotach, or meohavbach, right? In the older biblical Hebrew, you would have to say at motzet chen be'inai. At, you, motzet, find, chen, favor, be'inai. You find favor in my eyes. See how long that is? But you see how poetic it is. Hey girl, how you doing? You find favor in my eyes. Back then it was equivalent to ooh wee. What's your name? So again, you can see again that in order to write a modern screenplay or in order to use the language talking about technology or science, you just simply would not have been able to do it with ancient Hebrew. So I think if I had a hat on, I would take it off to Eliezer ben Yehuda and say that he did a great job. Aharwan Baker, shalom to you. Good to see you. So I tell you what, I'm going to dip back here because I'm actually going past the time that I normally do. I want to dip back to deal with George's question. So George asked a very important question, and it's the hot topic, hot button question of the day. What is the name of the Creator? What is, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Elohei Avraham, Yitzchak, veYaakov. How do they call his name? How is it pronounced? There were a lot of safeguards, as a lot of you know, that were put in place by those who preserved the writings over the centuries. And I have to add, because we have a lot of different tensions and a lot of ideas about who's who and what's what and the whole nine. I want to tell you something without hesitation. A lot of the writings that we enjoy, for example, I'll show you one right here, as a matter of fact, publications and books that we enjoy. This, for example, let me creep it a little further here. This is the Tanakh, and it's a beautiful work, and it was preserved through some pretty rough times, you guys. A lot of the books that we enjoy in the publications, things like Midrash Rabbah, even those who would dare to take a peek into the Mishnah or a lot of the other writings, the Tanya, any of these. But primarily the Torah. A lot of Torahs were preserved because the Mohammedans actually went through in an attempt to burn every Torah scroll that they could find when they were going through and they were smashing up the synagogues and everything else. Okay, they're Johnny come lately. You're the third of the Abrahamic religions. And in your mind, whatever was important to them is important to me. So, they'd smash one church, lay a headstone, and call it a mosque. They'd burn, genealogies and family records and the whole nine. And they would even burn the Torah. But things, for example, like a Torah like this, we only enjoy these today because a lot of people died preserving these, smuggled them from borders to borders, from Syria. I think one of the most notorious stories is actually the story of the Aleppo Codex, which is why I met Eliezer ben Yehuda's grandson. The Aleppo Codex was smuggled in from Syria, hence its namesake. And unfortunately, once it got to Israel, the Torah was stolen. The first 5 books were stolen and pages started showing up on the black market. A lot of people died. I mean, you read through some of the history, some people were wrapped in Torah scrolls and set on fire. So the books that we can pick up and enjoy come with a great price. They come with a great price. And I think we discredit humanity. We discredit the spirit of perseverance and the human spirit when we degrade other people who are responsible directly for us being able to enjoy the books that we enjoy. You can pick up Bamidbar chapter 1 and you can read Vayadaber Adonai el Moshe Bamidbar Sinai be'ohel moed be'ehad lachodesh hasheni b'shana hashenit letzeta me'eretz Mitzrayim lemor. You have these things. They're available. You can get them. Okay, so yeah, just a little love and a little respect for those who gave everything in order for us to enjoy. I'm going to answer this question and I'm going to jump off of here. I always say, you never have to berate anyone else to prove who you are. And once we become that, then we've lost. Our purpose is tainted and diminished. So the name of the Creator, spelled with the consonants Yud, Hey, Wow, Hey. I am one of those people that's not in favor of writing it down all over the place. I like that prohibition. If you're not going to use it in a meaningful and an endearing way, I think this is, so therefore I don't have an issue with writing it in this sense. But if it's not going to be written down in a meaningful and an endearing way, it shouldn't just be scribbled or scrawled anywhere. But in this particular case, we have the consonants Yud, Hey, we have Waw, and we have Hey. And just to give you an idea of how I was raised, I still feel funny just writing it down. You already know the in-between things. Like, for example, that within it, the name is contained the tenses of being. Haya, was. Hove, is. And then finally, Ihye is to come. The hu haya, the hu hove, the hu ihye. He was, he is, and is to come. You already know that already. David, you're stalling because you don't want to tell us how the name is pronounced. I'm going to tell you my stand on this, George. I cannot say with absolute certainty that I know. I can't. I know that in Brother Divine's Patreon, in his Patreon, he has a lot of information on preserved pronunciations, and a lot of that information, how we know certain things were vocalized based on their borrowings from other writings in similar familial language circles. I feel that we have a great clue when we hear the names of the prophets, like Eliyahu. Elijah, Eliyahu, Yeshayahu, Isaiah, Yirmiyahu, um, Isaiah chapter 6, Vishnat Mot HaMelech Uziyahu, in the year that King Uziyahu died, on and on and on. We have the name of the God of the Hebrews preserved as Yahu in a couple of writings from the other brother-sister languages. But one thing that I do know is that I've been to a couple of liturgical services that kind of reinforced my stand on this. I've been to a couple of liturgical services in Nablus, in what's called Shechem back in the day, where Jacob's well is, okay? And then in the Brit HaChadashah, in the New Testament, you have Yeshua, he's sitting there at the well, and the Shomronite woman comes to him and talks to him. Right there in Shechem, and in the liturgy, they will use Sem instead of saying Shem. Shem, Hebrew name, Sem in Aramaic. And again, that was another example I wasn't even intended to pull out. But you would say in Arabic, Ana Esmi. Ana Esmi Daoud. My name is David. Ana Esmi Daoud. In Hebrew, I would say Shmi David. Shmi David. But they will say Sem, much like in the Jewish world, you hear Hashem. But in pushing one of the elders, there in Nablus, he told me that when it is spoken, he told me that it is pronounced either as Yahu or Yahuwah. Yahu, to stay short and respectful, or Yahuwah. But it's not thrown around. And I tend to side with that. That's where I lean for now. And we know in the word that it was meant for the people to know the name. Think about the Aaronic benediction. He says, because he wanted his name placed on the people. That's my story. That's where I'm sticking, or what I'm sticking with until I get it together, until I do more research. But I tend to lean with the camp that Yahu, which is a preserved vocalization, okay, and it's very reliable. That's dead certain for me. Yahuwah is where I lean, and that's where I stay with. One last example, if you think about, even in the New Testament, think about how sounds are preserved. Who ever heard of Capernaum? First of all, it's just a mishmash. I remember when I was a kid, I used to say Capernaum, like it's some type of suntan lotion or something. Capernaum, Capernaum, you're more than welcome. You're more than welcome. Capernaum. But how did the Greeks end up preserving a, e, a, u? So the Greeks were not under the impression that all vowels were a in Hebrew, but they preserved from the Aramaic a, e, a, u. Well, you have to break the word up into two, what it is in reality in Hebrew. It's actually kifar nahum. Kifar nahum. Kifar means village. Nahum is like comfort or mercy, right? You remember in the book of Isaiah, comfort ye, my people. Nahamu, nahamu ami. So kifar nahum is two words, but somehow in Greek they preserved a, they preserved e, a, and u. And then when it became English, they just smushed it all together and came up with Capernaum. I know I keep saying last example. I appreciate you hanging out with me for a little bit. But one other is like, and you know these already, I'm sure. I think about that old commercial, you can learn a lot from a dummy. So I know you guys much brighter than I could be on my best day. But Bethany, what happened with that? Well, it's the same thing. Transliterating in the Greek, They preserved and Bethany. Why? Because, again, Beit, it's two words. Beit and Ein. Beit Anya. Beit Anya. It's two words. It's the rain getting in the way. Sorry about that. It's Beit Anya. Beit is house. Anya is poor, destitute. Most time you hear people say humble because it uses the word humble, and for Moshe says he's the most humble man. It used that word. Well, when you are poor and destitute, you are very lowly. You are very humble. And you remember Rachel, I think it was Rachel. Yeah, Rachel, before she passed away, she named Binyamin Ben Oni, Ben Oni, the son of my sorrow, the son of my lowliness. And then Yaakov, of course, changed his name to Binyamin. So at any rate, again, there was no particular goal in mind as far as hitting a specific point, but I just wanted to offer you guys some information about how layered the Semitic languages are. Uh, and again, our focus is on Hebrew, but I wanted you to see the correlation between Hebrew, Aramaic, and Arabic and how very close they are and how layered they are. And I wanted to give you an idea of what the Canaanite shift in effect, did to the northwestern Semitic languages, excuse me, like Hebrew and some of the Punic languages, the Canaanite languages. It did affect it and change it, but it's not like it's some boogeyman story. It's a part of history, and it was something that was necessary. So at any rate, I'm going to get out of you guys' hair. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. To all of you guys, I hope your week goes well and it is fruitful and productive. And as always, I'll leave you with the words of the Aaronic benediction, that all will go well. Bless you, Jason. Rav Todot Lecha. I see you've got a nice working um, understanding of the language, and it is special. It's divine. I won't lie. I'm biased. I dream in script. Sometimes in block letters. I dream. Um, And oh yeah, I'll leave you. Hold on, you got to be corny here just before I give the Aaronic benediction. Bavakasha Arwan. I want to leave you with a joke. How about this? You ready? Okay, here's a joke. It's corny, right? Maybe it would be funnier to you in Hebrew, but I'm gonna give it to you. The joke is Ma Amar Efes Leshmone. Ma Amar Efes Leshmone. What did the zero say to the 8? What did the 0 say to the 8? Ma'amar efes leshmone. Hatshuva, the answer? Hatshuva? The answer is Chagora Tova. So what did the 0 say to the 8? What did the 0 say to the 8? Chagora Tova. Nice belt. What did the 0 say to the 8? Nice belt. Yeah, squeeze it in the middle. Squeeze a 0 in the middle, it turns to an 8. Yeah. Yeah, get it? Okay, yeah. I know it's corny. All right, you guys. Yeah, pick that up, Brother Arrow Spike. And Marcus and all the rest of you guys. And I'll save the more advanced one for another later time. But I want to leave you with the words of the Aaronic benediction. The Most High, Yud He, Wal He, commanded Moshe and Aharon and his sons to bless the people in this manner. Why? Because he wanted his name to be placed on the people. And the words are, Yivarechecha Adonai v'yishmarecha, Ya'er Adonai panav elecha v'yichunecha, Yisa Adonai panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. May the Most High watch over you, guard over, and preserve you. May the Most High cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Most High lift his face upon you and give you his shalom, wholeness and peace, right? Because when we're not lacking anything, we tend to be in a pretty good mood. But when we understand that when we have him, we have everything. When we have everything, we are in a state of peace. I'll see you guys all real soon. Yalla bye.